Welcome to another episode of BAVNAH News and Information, brought to you by the Bennington Area Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice, also known as BAVNAH. I'm your host, Mark Mealy. November is recognized as National Hospice and Palliative Care Month, and today with me to talk about the services provided by the Bennington Area Visiting Nurse and Hospice is Nicolette Beagle, our Hospice Clinical Manager at BAVNAH, and Mary Pleasant, who is BAVNAH's Bereavement Coordinator and Hospice Volunteer Coordinator. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you for having us.
So, Nikki, just as a quick introduction, how did you get into hospice nursing?
I spent several years as a nurse's aide, seeing hospice patients, and then set my goal to become a nurse. I've been a nurse for collectively about 4.5 to 5 years and have grown to really love working with hospice patients and their families. I myself had a family member on hospice, and that really kind of ignited my zeal for it.
Sure.
To make sure that people get great care.
And Mary, I know that you've been with the agency for quite some time. What about you? What drew you to hospice? Because you didn't start in hospice.
Well, I sort of fell into the position. You know, I walked into my executive director's office and told her that I was bored, and I've never said that since. But I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely love working with hospice. I love working with the families and the volunteers, and our staff is just top notch. So I'm very lucky, and I feel like I found my home, and I hope everybody agrees because I'm here to stay. I've been here for almost 20 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, so I really feel like I'm home.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, Nikki, would you be able to just enlighten us and the viewers as to what hospice is? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what hospice care actually does.
Sure. So hospice is not a place. It's a specific form of care that is given to people and their families and their caregivers. The patients have a terminal diagnosis. They're dealing with a serious end-stage disease.
Okay.
So our team of professionals come in and offer support of all different kinds to make sure that people and their family have good quality of life through an end-stage illness.
And when you say end-stage illness, is there a time frame? Is there like a time limit as such, a projection?
So to be able to qualify for hospice care, a physician has to say that a patient has 6 months or less to live. And then as those 6 months go by while someone is on hospice, we constantly evaluate them and assess their situation and their family's situation to evaluate if they're still eligible for hospice, if their diagnosis is still terminal. And at the end of the 6 months, if they've been on service for that long, we reevaluate and say, do they still qualify? Do they still have the same needs that they had?
Okay.
Or increased needs?
So a person, it doesn't mean that when the diagnosis of 6 months or less comes out that person could actually be on hospice a lot longer, because maybe statistically people on hospice could live a little bit longer than those who are seeking treatment. Right,
that's very much true. There's lots of times where a patient has such good quality of life with hospice involved that they do tend to live a bit longer. And like you mentioned, the 6 month time frame, people can live through that. And we hope that they do with good care and enjoy the time that they have. But you are not required to die within 6 months.
And that being said, if a new medicine or treatment came up for whatever ailment they have, and I'll touch on that in a moment, could a patient revoke their hospice services and seek the treatment, and then what would they do after that?
So hospice is so very patient-driven that, of course, it's a flexible program in the sense that if something did come up that a patient was interested in pursuing, such as a new type of chemotherapy for a patient, they could revoke the hospice benefit and sign themselves off and pursue whatever treatment or care they were interested in. And then it just requires another evaluation by the hospice team if they wanted to come back onto hospice services to make sure that their goals of care are in line with a hospice philosophy, and to make sure that they're still within that window where a doctor could say, that they have a life expectancy of 6 months or less.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to know that when you sign on for hospice, you're not signing your life away.
Right.
You're just stating a fact that this is my choice to say I don't want to seek curative treatment.
Right.
I want to be kept comfortable. But if something comes up, yes, I might want to try something.
That's also their choice.
Yeah.
So there's lots of patient-driven choice involved in it.
What about palliative care? Because I think for me in my mind, there's a little bit of confusion as to hospice versus palliative care, and what does palliative care do?
So palliative care is similar to hospice in the sense that comfort and quality of life are key factors. Palliative care, there is no life expectancy requirement for, though.
Okay.
You just have to have a terminal diagnosis or a life-limiting illness that's affecting your quality of life. When you're on a palliative care program, you can still seek treatment. You can still, be a renal patient taking dialysis or a patient taking chemotherapy. You can still pursue treatments like that, but still have your comfort and quality of life maintained. Being on palliative care is different than hospice in the sense that hospice has a whole team of people surrounding you that look at all aspects of your life. Palliative care doesn't always necessarily carry that.
Gotcha.
But your comfort and dignity are maintained.
And Mary, not to leave you out of the conversation, we'll be bouncing over to you in a couple of minutes because hospice, as the hospice coordinator and hospice volunteer coordinator and bereavement coordinator, it's tied into the work and the services that are offered to hospice patients. But one question that I have for you, Nikki, too, on the clinical side, who is eligible for hospice? Who is eligible for palliative care?
Patients of all ages are eligible for both programs, for palliative care and hospice. As I said before, you have to have a terminal diagnosis or a life-limiting illness to be able to qualify. You can live in a nursing home, you can be someone living at home, you can be someone who's younger, you can be someone who's elderly. It's really available to all people.
So hospice services can be provided to anybody with a terminal illness wherever they call home?
Yes, absolutely.
Now with palliative care, is that the same, or is there a different criteria for being homebound or?
Well, if you're on palliative care services, you can live at home. You can be in a hospital setting receiving palliative care. But technically, if you're in a home setting and you're on palliative care, you do end up being homebound under that same status, which is a little less flexible than hospice care.
Hospice, they kind of want you to
go out,
fill your bucket list, if you will, for lack of a better phrase.
Correct. You don't have to be homebound when you're on hospice.
And it's not, there's always kind of a stigma that hospice or palliative care is just for cancer patients. But as you keep saying, it's available for anybody with a life-limiting illness. So what would those life-limiting illnesses be? Are there?
Yeah, there is a big misconception that cancer is the only thing that can qualify you for a wonderful program like hospice, but that is so far from the case. Patients with end-stage renal disease where their kidneys are failing, patients who have difficulty with their livers, if they're, have extensive liver disease, patients with HIV or AIDS who are end stage, patients with ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease can qualify. There's all sorts of things that can cause you to be in a terminal situation.
Right.
And if your life expectancy is altered and affected by that diagnosis, that's qualifiable.
And on hospice, nurses are available when? I'm assuming 24/7?
Nurses are available 24/7. I always like to tell patients and their families, you have us in your back pocket anytime, day or night. If you need us, you call us. And that's a huge comfort to families and to the patients to know that someone is on their side and by their side 24/7 if they need us.
And with that, I'm going to look at you, Mary, because, with hospice volunteers, it kind of is an extra, I don't want to say safety net, but kind of like a comfort net, if you will, with the whole grouping that you get on hospice, because you might not always have a nurse in somebody's home, but you might have a volunteer who's there. What do volunteers do when they're out visiting hospice patients?
Well, again, it's patient driven. So whatever the patient and or family need from our volunteers is what they'll provide. They generally provide companionship and respite, but beyond that, they provide Reiki and reflexology, and our Serenity singers go out and bring music to the bedside. They really provide that social support that so many of our hospice patients are not able to achieve on their own. So you're absolutely right in saying that that's kind of like a safety net. It's kind of like a little extra padding to be able to say, hey, we're here for you, and we're going to come in with a clean slate, and when I'm there to visit, we're going to do whatever it is that you want to do for that hour, for the 2 hours that I'm there. So it's really cool because our volunteers are such an asset to our program in that they can come back and tell us what they're finding in the home that maybe we haven't seen. So, we really look to our volunteers, our trained volunteers, to be able to tell us what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and make suggestions as to how we can support them even better and to improve their quality of life, which is what we're all about.
Yeah, so there's really no hidden agenda, which is the nice thing about being a volunteer, because you're going into somebody's home and you're becoming a part of their existence at that point in their life. So it's not only a delicate situation, but you're also there just to kind of, I don't like to use the term being a breath of fresh air in this situation, but you almost are in a sense, because I'm assuming I'm fortunate enough not to have a terminal illness, but I would think that if I were, it would be nice to have somebody coming in who isn't going to be talking about the nursing care that I need or where my prognosis is. It's just kind of fresh face coming in and doing.
Absolutely, and oftentimes our patients will share with our volunteers things that they can't share with anybody else. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to have that conversation with your family when you're scared or nervous or you're having thoughts that maybe you just can't share. And they will share those with our volunteers, and it's very helpful and caring in providing the interdisciplinary care that we're trying to provide for our patients if they're open enough to share that with our volunteers.
Now, it seems to me that if somebody were given the option of hospice care, that the sooner they could be on hospice care, the better not the better the outcome, but the better the quality of service they can get, because they're going to get it for a longer period of time than if they are coming in at the final stages of life where it might only be a month or 2 weeks before. Because it seems like there's a lot that can be offered to hospice patients.
You're absolutely right. The sooner that they can come onto hospice, the more the benefit they're going to receive. So we enter every patient and family with an interdisciplinary mode. So we want to make sure that we're reaching their social support with the volunteers and their spiritual support with our chaplain and their psychosocial support with our MSW. And of course, our awesome nurses and our medical director, who really take the lead on making sure that they're not in a physical distress. So the sooner that we can get them on and find out not only what's going on with the patient, but what's going on with the family, the sooner we can get support in there, the better it is for everyone.
It sounds like it, because you're not only treating, I think you stated in the beginning, not only the patient, but the family. It's a whole unit, because you want to make sure that the family feels supported in a situation where they might not have ever gone through it before. They don't know. We could say that working in this field that we have an understanding of what is going to happen during the trajectory of this person's disease, but somebody else might not know that. So to have that extra support system, not only through the nurses coming in to visit, but the volunteers. You mentioned something about Reiki and spiritual guidance as well. And I'm assuming that the spiritual guidance doesn't necessarily have to be religion specific, but maybe just somebody who just needs to talk about something. Would I be right in that?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Our spiritual support person who comes in as part of the team offers conversation that's just meaningful meaningful life review.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what life means to you, or what a good life means to you.
Mm-hmm.
What went right, what went wrong in your life, what's important to you to talk about or to get off your chest, or things you need to say.
What are those things that fill your soul?
Right.
That's not always religious. To some people that is. God is what fills their soul and brings them comfort. Not everybody is religious, and what brings them comfort might be talking about the Red Sox, or music,
Right.
or any number of things, poetry. Whatever it is that fills your soul, that's what our hospice chaplain really strives to help them come to terms with.
Now, I'm assuming that there's an evaluation. If you stated that a physician has to sign an order stating that somebody has a terminal illness, who makes an assessment? Who goes into a patient's home, and what kind of questions or conversation does that individual have with the patient about hospice?
Sure. So usually a physician has seen the patients, or nurses in the hospital have seen the patient and kind of gotten a feel for, would hospice be appropriate for a patient or not? So they'll reach out to us, and we send a nurse out to actually see the patient, and talk with the patient and meet with them and their family, to find out questions like, what are your goals for the future? Are you interested in any sort of treatment or hospitalizations? Are you interested in a focus that's a comfort-based approach to just enjoying your life, even though you have a life-limiting illness? Do you have CPR preferences? I mean, there's so many questions we ask, just to find out where people are in dealing with their disease, where they are on their, not just on their trajectory, but how are they coping with it? How are rehospitalizations or treatments affecting them physically and emotionally and spiritually?
And that kind of care and those kind of questions continue, I'm assuming, as the patient's disease trajectory either goes on the same downhill path, I keep calling it the trajectory, or maybe their health improves enough that it's like, okay, we need to reassess this and see what's going on here, and just the reevaluation of it. So there's always somebody asking questions and talking to the patients, and which is really good because it puts the patient then, by the sounds of it, in control of their destiny, of the remaining time of their life, and it's their choice. And again, I'm looking at the both of you thinking, it sounds to me like if you didn't want to seek curative treatment, the earlier you can get on hospice, the better, because you're getting that full support system. Not only that, but you're also able to make a clear decision for yourself, as opposed to a point where you're so ill that you're not able to make those clear decisions.
That's absolutely true.
Now, along with that, too, talking about making decisions, there is a statewide initiative through the VNAs of Vermont, and it's called Start the Conversation. And I know it's in collaboration with, now I'm drawing a blank, which happens.
The Vermont Ethics Network.
Thank you so much, Mary. Yes. Now, with the Start the Conversation, what is that about? What is the initiative?
So the initiative, as you said, is statewide. All the non-for-profit hospices across Vermont have come together with the Vermont Ethics Network to strive to go out into our communities and encourage everyone to make those end-of-life care decisions, or at least have the conversation with their loved ones. That's our goal. We don't necessarily need you to make them today, but we want you to make them as soon as possible, so that you have something in writing, and the people that you have named as your healthcare proxies are going to be able to know what your wishes are in the event that you can't speak for yourself. That day could come for any of us at any time. That's why, the earlier you can do it, the soonest you can do it, that would be the best time to do it. That's not to say that you can't go back and change your mind. Nothing is ever written in stone. So what's great about Start the Conversation is that we not only talk about advanced directives and naming your healthcare proxy, but we talk about the database, the national database, which also helps you to come or to revisit your advance directives once a year to be able to decide, geez, how am I doing? Do I still want these same measures taken in the event that something would happen? Or, are my thoughts different now? So it's not that we want it to be on the forefront of your mind all the time, but it's good to have the conversation early. And again, it doesn't matter how old you are, because you never know.
Right. And I think you hit it pretty good right there when you said appointing a healthcare agent or healthcare proxy, because even if you don't put it down in writing today, having the conversation with them, having the conversation with your healthcare provider, at least so somebody knows, then somebody's able to speak if you're not able to speak for yourself, because as you say, you never know when that time is going to be, and it could happen over a slow period of time where you have the time to make decisions and appoint somebody, or it could happen very fast. An accident could happen and now you're not able to speak for yourself. Who's going to know what Mark wanted for himself?
Absolutely.
Is there a fee for filling out your advance directive?
There is no fee, and there are many people that can help you with it. If you're feeling like, I want to do it, I just need a little support, I need some direction, you can reach out to your pastor to help you. You can reach out to your lawyer, you can reach out to your doctor. You could actually come into the VNA hospice and speak with our social worker there. There are a number of people who can help you fill it out. It is free. You can send it off to the national database, which is housed in New Jersey, for free. And our actual Start the Conversation programs that we do out in the community are also completely free. We're not looking for a monetary compensation. What we're hoping for is that everybody starts to have the conversations and have them early. That's our goal. That's what we want for our community members.
And how that ties into what we're discussing today is the fact that in this packet of information that you would fill out in your advance directive is whether or not you would want hospice services. And again, like you were saying, you can update it at any time, because what might be a decision today could change a year from now, 6 years from now. You never know. So that's one of the luxuries of filling out your advance directives, is that you can update it at any time.
Absolutely. And updates might include something that you've become more educated in, or it might be a medical advancement that you want to try, a new medicine that came out, and maybe you wouldn't opt to go on to hospice as soon as you would without this advanced medicine. So it's just constantly keeping on the up and up with what's going on around end of life care. So the more you can talk about it, the more you're going to learn. And we are always open to having people come in just to talk about end-of-life care wishes.
Well, and I know in the interest of time here, you have a couple of things coming up in December that work, as part of the hospice team. What are these events that you have coming up? Could you tell us briefly what we've got?
Well, I can tell you that winter brings some really glorious holidays. But when you've lost a loved one who has died, those holidays can sometimes be difficult. So we have a Coping with the Holidays workshop. We're offering it twice. It's actually the same workshop, but we're going to offer it during the daytime for those people who can make it more easily during the day. And then for those people who are working during the day, we've put together a workshop for the evening. Our workshops are going to be held by they're going to be facilitated by Elizabeth Fredland, our social worker on our hospice team, and Lucy Imes, who is our spiritual counselor on our hospice team. And they are going to be available on December 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. and on December 8th from 2:30 to 4:30. It'll be held at the Bennington Library in the Bank North Room. So there's really no agenda per se. They're there to meet the needs of the community who come in. So if you want to come in and just grab some helpful information and tips for how to cope with the holidays, that'll be available. But if you want to sit down and kind of chat with Elizabeth or Lucy, that's available. So that's coming up in the first week in December. We're also having a winter memorial service, which is open to the community. This year we're going to hold it over at the UU Meeting House on School Street here in Bennington. It is always a very lovely service. We encourage people of all ages to come and partake. There will be music by our Serenity Singers, and a couple of soloists are going to join us this year.
Fantastic.
And we're going to have some local clergy come. We're going to share poems and some artwork, and it'll be a really nice presentation as it usually is, but it's just a really remarkable way to remember your loved ones and to honor them and to come together with other people who are grieving so that, hey, you know, you're not alone.
And what date is that again in time?
That is December 11th at 3 p.m.
December 11th at 3 p.m. And this information is up on our website at www.bavnah.org. It's BAVNAH.org. But if somebody needed some more information about this, would they contact you? Could they
Absolutely.
What's a
They
good phone
could.
number that they
Yeah.
could reach you at?
802-442-0540 is the best way to reach me. So again, that's 802-442-0540.
And that would be if you were interested in going to either one of these social gatherings, or if you wanted to become a hospice volunteer or a bereavement
Yes.
volunteer, which we have done shows on before, and we'll do another one coming up here very soon to go into more detail about that.
Absolutely.
But it's they're really beautiful services. I've been to them myself, and you know, it means a lot, and it's nice to know that the community, you don't have to have somebody who has passed away through the Bennington Area VNA and Hospice. It's just if you've lost anybody and you want to come and celebrate their life in a manner of
Absolutely.
speaking, just to kind of be there with other folks. So before we conclude here, I want to just talk quickly about the volunteer opportunities, because I know that we will be doing a show later on about that, but we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I did want to put that in for you about the hospice volunteers. Training, time frames, how often do you do it?
We actually have a training going on right now. We have 2 more weeks left, and we have an amazing group of individuals in this training. So I can't wait to bring them on board. Our trainings usually last 9 consecutive weeks. Our next training will begin in March, and we offer them twice a year. So if March doesn't work for you, call me anyway, and we'll sign you up for September. So throughout the training, you know, we talk about everything from intro to hospice, death and dying, bereavement. We take a tour of a local funeral home. You know, it really takes you through the journey from diagnosis to bereavement. So by the end of the 9 weeks, you really know whether or not hospice volunteering is something that you want to do.
Which is good, because it doesn't mean that after the 9-week course that you have to actually be a volunteer.
You are not
We
obligated.
hope that you will be, but we understand that it really is a heavy subject. It's not, you know, a light and fluffy volunteer type situation, because you are dealing with death and dying, to put it quite frankly, and you go into that during your training program as well.
Absolutely.
So
That's
that-
why we spend so much time in the classroom, is because it's a very unique type of volunteering, unlike any other volunteering opportunity available. And so we spend so much time in the classroom because we want you to know without a doubt by the end of the 9 weeks that, yeah, this is what I want to do. I know I can do it. I'm prepared to do it.
Well, I know we could talk about hospice, palliative care, volunteering, the whole gamut all day long, but our time has come to an end. And so I want to thank you both very much for taking time out of your day to share with us, with me, the viewers, a little bit more information about hospice and palliative care and the services provided. And of course, you can visit our website at www.bavnah.org and find out a little bit more detail about the services that hospice care and palliative care can provide. You can give us a call at 802-442-5502 and speak to Nikki if you had any specific questions about hospice or palliative care. And so I thank you again for watching another episode of BAVNAH News and Information, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you so much.